trust the science, people. As of what is it? Saturday? The science changes. Why am I reading CBC? Because I want to see how Justin Trudeau's payroll employees. They're not really the employees of Justin Trudeau for fact checkers out there. They just exist off government subsidies. That was, it comes from any government, but it just happens to be coming from the Trudeau government. $1 billion a year, taxpayer dollars, to finance the flailing, crappy, government-sponsored propaganda that is the CBC and the French version, Radio-Canada. Let's see how they describe this. Oh, by the way, $1 billion subsidizing Canadian media. It's totally not Pravda. It's totally not RT. This is legit because it's Canadian. Then the $600-700 million that went to the other unsubsidized media, Global, National Post, Toronto Star, 600 and some odd million. Bailout in 2018, I think. Set that aside. So you got $1 billion for Radio-Canada, CBC. You got $600+ million bailout for the other legacy media in Canada. Then you got COVID ads. Then you got government ads. Then you got indirect subsidies. But no, our media is totally independent, and RT is Russian propaganda. Okay, whatever. Parentheses closed. The big news. Border vaccine rules, mandatory use of ArrivalCAN, mask mandates on planes, trains end October 1st. Not October 1st, 2021, people. October 1st, 2022. Remind me to address the American issue because, from what I understand, they still have vaccination requirements for foreign nationals entering the U.S. We'll get to that in a second. Lifting of regulations has been called for by border city mayors. Oh, that sounds like politics and not science. There was either science for the implementation of these policies or there wasn't. It's not because border city mayors clamor to end these idiotic, unconstitutional, inhumane measures that they get lifted. If they're scientifically justified, that's what matters in theory. Okay. The federal government says it's dropping. I'm pretty sure they said they're suspending, but I'll double check. All COVID-19 measures at borders on Saturday, meaning travelers will no longer need to provide proof of vaccination when entering Canada or wear masks on planes and trains. Oh, that's amazing. As of October 1st, all travels, regardless of citizenship. Oh, it's almost like when you get embarrassed enough, when you get mocked enough on the national scale, when you have some pesky little nutcase with a fro. I don't think I had anything to do with it. When you have people railing against you day in and day out, showing the lack of science and above all else, the inhumane nature of these policies, it's almost like once it becomes politically untenable, the science changes. They will no longer have to submit public health information through the ArrivalCAN app or website. Oh, they will no longer have to provide proof of vaccination. They are no longer numbers. They are individual human beings. Their life has meaning. Gosh darn it, if I'm quoting from Network and using the censored versions. They will no longer have to undergo pre or on-arrival testing. They will no longer have to carry COVID-19 quarantine or isolation. They will no longer have to carry out COVID-19 related quarantine. Quarantining young, healthy people who are not infected with COVID just because they weren't vaccinated. 12 years old and up. They will no longer have to monitor and report if they develop signs and symptoms upon arriving in Canada. They will no longer have to undergo health checks for travel on air and rail or wear masks on planes and trains. Read this in reverse, people. Until Sunday, or whenever October 1st is, anyone entering Canada has to submit public health information through ArrivalCAN app, provide proof of vaccination, undergo pre- and on-arrival testing, carry out quarantine requirements if they're not vaccinated. By the way, and if they're foreign nationals, they just can't enter Canada. Undergo health checks on travel and air. We are no longer free citizens. Is the word wards of the state? We are property of the state. Until October 1st, we all still have to do this. Health Minister Jean-Yves Duclos said the decision Monday is not a sign Canada is out of the pandemic, but said the government's data showed the importation of new variants was no longer having an effect on the evolution of the virus in the country. That's verbal diarrhea. But no, guys, CBC's independent. They're not the mouthpiece propagandist tools of the government that funds them, $1 billion a year. They're not. But they're just repeating what Jean-Yves Duclos said. It's totally scientific. Jean-Yves Duclos, I'll play the video in a second, said Monday the decision is not a sign Canada is out of the pandemic, but said the government's data showed the importation of new variants was no longer having an effect on the evolution of the virus in the country. Can I ask you to show your homework, Monsieur Duclos? CBC, may I ask if you asked Jean-Yves Duclos to show his homework? Methinks you didn't, because you are propagandists who don't vet, check, or hold the government to account. You are their mouthpieces and their bullhorns. Let's see what this has to say here. Is this the video that I saw?
Based on the data accumulated over the last few weeks.
Show it. Show your homework. Show your homework, you liar.
And months. We are announcing that the government of Canada will not renew the order in council that expires on September the 30th and will therefore remove all COVID-19 border requirements for all travelers entering Canada.
They have been merely renewing these orders month over month. No public debate, no legislative process, no showing your homework. I think ministerial order, I think we'll just shut the border down. I think we'll require, which way is the wind blowing? I think we'll require unvaccinated 12-year-olds to quarantine when they cross the border. Just because. Science.
Includes the removal of all federal testing, quarantine, and isolation requirements, as well as the mandatory submission of health information in ArrivalCAN.
By the way, just notice they said they're not renewing it. They didn't say they're canceling it. They could presumably just issue another order in council with the same lack of oversight that they've been doing and renewing for the last... When did they shut the border down? It's 2 years.
Government of Canada will maintain the ability to reestablish certain border measures should they be required in the future to protect Canadians from the importation of new variants of concern or other emerging public health threats.
By the way, they reserve the right to do even more for things beyond COVID. It's a victory. By the way, how did the propagandist mouthpiece of the government describe it? Oh, they said it's dropping all COVID-19 measures. That's not what they said, CBC. Thank you for allowing me to show the video of why you guys are liars and should be defunded to the fullest extent of the legislation. They didn't say they're dropping all COVID-19 measures. They said they're not renewing the order in whatever it is, the order in council, and that they reserve the right to do it if ever they so choose in the future. Yeah, that's dropping. That's dropping. All right. You guys are not government propagandist lying, Pravda. You're not. You're free. You're free media. You deserve our taxpayer dollars. Oh, look at this. If anyone believes the pandemic is over, I invite them to visit a hospital, he said. Hospitals are going to have sick people in them. That's why they're there. There will be viruses that will put people in hospitals. That you don't shut down a border and you don't make healthy 12-year-olds quarantine if the hospital is the issue. That decision, once again, was driven by the evidence that we've seen over the last few weeks, yada, yada, which is that the transmission and cost of transmission of COVID-19 health. Okay, whatever. Let's hear what Omar Algebra has to say. Last week, a group of MPs and border city mayors published an open letter to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and the U.S. president asking them to end the unnecessary rules at the border, a move they say would allow border communities to recover economically from the pandemic. Let's hear what Omar Algebra, Minister of Transport, has to say. I haven't seen this yet.
We've always maintained that the extraordinary measures we introduced at our borders and on airplanes, trains, and boats were temporary. And that we would adjust them as situation changes. So today, we're doing just that. As my colleague, Minister Duclos, just said, starting on October 1st, we are removing COVID-19 measures that remain at the border. The factors that allow us to remove these border measures also allow me to announce that Transport Canada is removing existing travel requirements. This means that as of October 1st, travelers will no longer be required to undergo health checks for travel.
We've always said we were going to do it. We've always said it. We always said it was temporary. My sweet, merciful goodness. Years is not temporary, first of all. And second of all, yeah, you never said they were permanent. You also said 2 weeks to flatten the curve. But who trusts this guy? Like, just if we're talking demeanor, let's compare him to Meloni, Georgia. Let's compare Omar Alghabra to Georgia Meloni. Who trusts this guy? Who? First of all, you have what? You have how much do you have to say, Omar, that you can't say without reading notes? I don't have notes because I know what I'm going to say because it's the truth. It's not a scripted lie. You can't even muster together this statement without looking at your notes. That's how sincere, authentic, and truthful it is.
On air and rail, or wear masks on planes and trains.
Can we have the data that ever showed that wearing masks on planes and trains ever worked or was ever necessary in the first place? I think we have the data that it wasn't. I think a lot of it was exposed in that charter lawsuit, as exposed through the various depositions conducted by Keith Wilson et al. In the honorable, or the honorific, someone said, Brian Peckford's charter challenge. They never had the data to begin with, but they always said it was temporary, and the data's changed.
For international flights to Canada, airlines will no longer need to review the vaccination status of foreign nationals, confirm travelers have submitted the required information in ArrivalCAN, or ensure compliance with the pre-entry testing requirements.
You no longer have to show compliance, people. Masks still recommended. Okay, look, we're just going here. Public safety, Marco Mendicino. Oh, demonstrable liar. Remind me about this. Let me just go. Demonstrable liar. Let's just go. I'm going to pull up the video. Marco Mendicino. Demonstrable, proven liar. When defending invoking the Emergencies Act, said that there was a risk of a certain type of assault of a sexual nature on people in Ottawa. The truckers were threatening to. It rhymes with grape. Marco Mendicino said that. Marco Mendicino said that the RCMP had asked for the Emergencies Act to be declared when in reality they hadn't, and it caught them by surprise. And from what I understand, they said they were more than capable of dealing with the protest without invoking the Emergencies Act. Marco Mendicino is a liar, a proven, demonstrable liar. Let's hear what he has to say now. Public Safety Minister Marco Mendicino said the ArrivalCAN app can still be used by travelers to submit customs declarations in advance at major airports. Oh, that's nice. The option is available at the International Airport in Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver, but there are plans to extend to airports in Calgary, blah, blah, blah. The government also said the Canada Border Service Agency is looking at adding features to ArrivalCAN, like border wait time. Oh, don't worry, people. Something good is going to have come out of your egregious, rampant constitutional violations at the hands of Supreme Leader Justin Trudeau. Let me see if I can find this. Let's see. Is this it? Please, please, please. Let's see it. Here we go. This is it. Got it.
Understand how you could be saying on one hand, there's.
This was one of the mistakes I made in life, people. At least on YouTube. This is Raquel Doncho. I thought she was being serious and didn't appreciate that this is stone cold, in your face sarcasm. She's asking a highly rhetorical question in a manner that, even for the sharpest of people, can be misconstrued as a serious, non-rhetorical question. Listen to this. Asking Mendicino about invoking the Emergencies Act.
Like, I just don't understand how you could be saying on one hand, there's all these strong ties and this is a national emergency for public safety. And I walked every day by these protests. It just doesn't really add up at all.
Minister,
Dancho,
sorry, just 10 seconds, Minister.
Well, I would say first, it's not an insinuation. We got the advice from our law enforcement that we've met the threshold. And
I
secondly,
just
Ms.
can't believe you
Dancho,
put us in danger in that way,
respectfully,
to
Ms.
be honest.
Dancho,
Like,
there
that
were Ottawans who were
seems
subjected
very
to
irresponsible to
intimidation,
me.
harassment, threats of rape. I mean, and those were all supported by
So how could we have
charges,
possibly been allowed to
and
walk by
arrest.
that every
Sorry.
day? Like, I just don't understand how you could be saying on one hand, there's all these.
The man is a proven liar. And thank goodness I have the receipts. Okay. I used ArrivalCAN. I'm not going to make fun of you, Dave North. This is not to make fun of you. I used ArrivalCAN last month. Wasn't that bad. Plus, it wasn't infringing on my rights because I'm British. Okay, fine. Touche. But I'll tell you one thing. Let me pull this up. I'll tell you one thing. It sure as hell violated my rights. And it sure as hell made me feel very, very uncomfortable. Here, check this out, guys. Let's do this here. Listen to this. Let's go with English.
And before we proceed, I need to inform you this call is being monitored for training and quality purposes.
This is my experience with the ArrivalCAN app.
Today I'll be asking a few questions about.
And after this, we're moving to Rumble.
To verify that she's in compliance with obligation, include a day 1 and a day 8 COVID test. This call should just take a few minutes.
Oh, okay. This is me at my angriest.
In Canada on Tuesday.
I confirm that yes, we arrived in Canada Tuesday.
Okay, and a record indicated that she is an unvaccinated traveler entering Canada.
Yeah.
Unvaccinated traveler entering Canada who do not meet the Canadian definition of fully vaccinated are required to be in quarantine for a minimum of 14 days. Is she under quarantine?
Oh, really? That's the address we they're required to be in quarantine.
Excuse me. In virtue of what is she supposed to be in quarantine for 14 days?
Yes.
No, in virtue of what?
Because she's unvaccinated.
No, but that's not my understanding of the law.
What do you mean it's not your understanding of
What
the law?
What provision of law are you suggesting requires my daughter to be in 14 days of quarantine?
She's under the Federal Quarantine Act.
Under the
But
Federal
what provision
Quarantine
of law is it? Because I know,
Sir.
I know
Sir.
I've read the Quarantine Act. I've studied the Quarantine Act.
Okay.
What provision of law? Because she tested negative. We've had COVID within the last 180 days.
I understand that. So she's not required to be tested again. But since she's not a fully vaccinated traveler entering Canada, she's required to be in quarantine for.
Under what provision of law?
Sir, the Quarantine Act. That's it.
No, it's not, by the way. It's the order in council.
I'm telling you, I've read the Quarantine Act. There is nothing in it that.
I understand. Sir, if you go on canada.ca.
That's a website.
19 coronavirus, you will see unvaccinated traveler entering Canada are required to be in quarantine for 14 days.
I just have to point this out, by the way. The reflection, I never noticed this until now. That's my shirt that says politics ruins everything in reverse reflection on the window. But okay, and then we'll be done.
I'm not sure that I don't believe that's the law.
Yes, she is. She's required to be in quarantine. She is. Yep. She's 12 years old.
Yep.
So
12 years. Lock her up.
Lock.
It's not child abuse.
Yeah.
She's not under 12, so she's required to be in quarantine, sir.
Okay. I don't know that that's the law. In fact, I'm a lawyer, and I'm fairly certain that's not the law.
Sir, if you go, I said.
I'll go look. I'll go look and thank you. Okay. Thank you for the call. Thank you for the call. I'll go look.
Okay.
And by the way, just to point out something here, I recorded that that's an old video recorded in Canada because people should appreciate before you do secret recordings. Although that stated that they were recording it as well. Some states, such as Florida, are two-party consent states. So you can't actually record a conversation without. Oh, geez, my computer's going to go down. Hold on. Damn kids, pull the plug out. Whew. In some states, such as Florida, two-party consent states, you cannot record a conversation without notifying the other person that you're recording or getting the consent of all parties. That was in Canada. Canada is not a two-party consent state. But yeah, that was it, sir. And I appreciate she's just doing her job. And I've had discussions with some of these agents who are shocked and shocked by and don't support these policies. But that was my experience. Yeah. You won't have to do it anymore, people. 12-year-old kids don't need to go into 2 weeks of quarantine. Healthy 12-year-old kids. You no longer need to abuse your children, Canadians. Don't worry. And it wasn't abuse because the government told you to do it.